أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صدق الله العلي العظيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we've reached the end of the series of the 23 short surahs of the Quran, and what I intend to do is just to give a broad summary of what we have covered so far. We started off with a very brief look at some of the important prophets mentioned in the Quran. And if you look at the group mentioned here, it starts off with Adam and it goes down the line in terms of a timeline. This is all before Christ, so almost like 3,000 years and more before Christ or before Isa alayhi salam was born. And these were some of the more important prophets of this particular era. Then we come but closer to the advent of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last of the important prophets. So there are a list of about 25 mentioned in this particular two slides, and there are various stories in the Quran about them. Sometimes a prophet is mentioned just for one or two things in one or two ayah, and you have other prophets like Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, Yusuf for instance, where an entire surah is revealed about his whole life story from beginning to end in chronological sequence. The prophet that's mentioned the most in the Quran is Musa alayhi salam. While Muhammad has a Surah Muhammad, but it's also, everything in the Quran is about different points in the Prophet's life, and sometimes it talks about events like the different battles or the Treaty of Hudaybiyah or the conquest or the Fatih Makkah, etc., even about certain enemies of Islam. So from time to time the Quran has a lot of references to various points in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, because over the 23 years of the revelation of the Quran, the Prophet was not only guided by the Quran, but the Quran became the source of guidance as well for him. We looked at some of the major world religions. Islam is probably the youngest of all the divinely revealed religions, starting in the year 610. 610 is actually the time of the death of the Prophet, 632. So that period of 610, 632 is the time of the revelation. And prior to that we have Christianity, Judaism, and other faiths as well. We talked about the actual environment or the terrain where the revelation was revealed, the Arabian Peninsula, and those were the important tribes and their locations during the time of the birth of the Prophet as well as his early life in Makkah. We started our study with A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the fact that we need to seek protection from the shaitan, the accursed or the rejected one, and also the fact that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim must accompany all our deeds and actions. Whatever we do in life, always start with the Bismillah on our lips, and then things will go well for us. We started off with Surah Al-Fatiha, the 7 oft repeated verses of the Quran. Fatiha means a lot of things. Fatiha on one meaning is the fact that it's the opening or the opening chapter or the opening surah of the Quran. In terms of this particular surah, we know that this is a surah most read often, so it's the 7 most repeated verses of the Quran. I've used Bismillah as verse 1 and then Alhamdu is verse 2. Others start the counting of Alhamdu to be verse 1 and still ending on verse 7, which is Sirat al-Ladhina An'amta Alayhim. Now, this surah can be divided into 2 parts, and that little blue arrow shows the 2 parts of it. The first part is about just the praise and hamd of Allah, and he talks of some of his main attributes. Allah, which is a proper noun reserved for him alone, derived from the word ilah, which means a deity or object or worthy of worship, and he is deserving of all praise and shukr. That's why alhamd is used. The other quality that's mentioned is Rabb, meaning the nourisher, the sustainer, the one who makes sure that all living forms sustain themselves. He gives them enough food and water, etc., whatever is required for their living. Then the two other qualities, the Rahman, that is beneficent, or the merciful, that's now, and this mercy can be taken away at any time, so it has the temporariness about it. And the Rahim is the fact that he's also permanently merciful on a timeless basis. The other quality is Malik, Maliki Yawmiddin, of Day of Judgment. He's the owner or the master of the Day of Judgment, or the king of the Day of Judgment. And only you we worship, and only you do we ask for help. So this relationship of a Rabb and a Abd comes through, where he is the Rabb and we are the Abd, or the Ubud, the Ibad, or the persons that are the slaves of the Rabb. Now, after praising Allah in these first few verses, mentioning His Hamd and some of His qualities, unique qualities that only He has, we then change tact from this arrow going down. Iyaka na'budu, only you do we worship. So this word of ibadah comes in. Wa iyaka nasta'in, and only you do we ask for help, because there's no one else that can give us any of the things that we want in life. Then we are asking for guidance, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and the description of the Sirat is about people that have been blessed, or that you have blessed. The word na'im coming in, an'amta, the verb of it, those who you have blessed, and not those who have incurred your wrath, which is the maghdub, qadab, that anger is on them, as well as those who are dalla. Dalla is to be who have gone astray. So if you look at this idea of Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, is to do with being on the straight path. You need to be at least on the path. You don't have to, if you look at what this verse is saying, is guide us to the straight path. In other words, let us be always on that straight path and not being diverted by shaitan in different ways and getting waylaid or sidetracked in any way. And as long as we are on the path, hopefully we will reach attain salvation. Now, being on the straight path means you must acquire knowledge and you must act on it. In other words, you must have the ibadah, the abd notion of it, which is having the knowledge, and then follow it up with the amalus salihat, which is the good deeds as well. Now you have two categories of people that we must stay away from. Some people who are very, very knowledgeable, but they don't act on their knowledge, and they are the maghdub, those who incur the wrath of Allah, and others who have knowledge, or rather they don't have knowledge, but they've got the verve and the enthusiasm and the energy to act on things in a very blind sort of way, and they are the dallin. So we must be careful of the fact that Allah must protect us from both the maghdub and the dallin of the people around us, and make sure that we are on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Then we have the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where he asked for two things. He said, make this city, Makkah, where he built the Kaaba, make it a baladan aminan, and also warzuq ahlahu min athamarat, and bless it with good fruit and food for all times. So although we were like Ibrahim and Ismail, and they were asked to come to a place where it was a barren valley, but he had to build the Kaaba, which he did, and he built it for the sole purpose of the iqama salah there. In other words, salah should be made in the vicinities of the Kaaba and made that Qibla, and also hearts must be turned towards the fact that towards Allah and closeness towards Him. Now these are the du'as that he made some 2,500 years before the advent of the Prophet and the Al Feel, as we then moved on to Alam Tara. And we mentioned the fact that Makkah was like the center of this particular north-south trade route from Yemen to Syria in the north. It was about 1,500 kilometers to Makkah in the south and 1,500 going to the north as well. And Abraha decided to come with an army of a few elephants, some say between 11 and 13, and an army of about 50 to 60,000 people. And they made this long trip of 1,500 kilometers all the way in order to do two things. One is to establish himself as and regain the economic powerhouse status of Yemen, the Hadramaut and Sana'a and Aden sort of region, because it was destroyed by a great flood just a few hundred years before that. So that was the one motive of his, to regain, make it again the economic hub of the whole peninsula. And the second one was, a kind of a religious motive as well, that being jealous of the fact that Makkah had a Kaaba, and he built a temple of his own in Yemen, and he thought the only way people will try and divert their attention from Makkah is if he built his own temple and forced people to come to Yemen to worship rather than go to the Kaaba to worship. Now we know that in Surah Al-Amtara, he undertook this journey of 1500 kilometers, and he came right to this point, Wadi Muhassar, which is barely 8 kilometers, almost literally a stone's throw from the Kaaba, and this is where that army of elephants and his army was destroyed. So this was the year for 570, where Abraha's intended assault on Makkah to destroy the Kaaba was planned, and it was a few months later that the Prophet ﷺ was also born. So he established this a very amazing, elaborate plan, the Scade, and obviously to bring such a huge army with so many elephants, you got to look at logistics for doing that journey that will take almost 2 months to complete through a desert and hard rocky terrain and mountainous terrain near Taif. It was quite a long journey, and he went there only to find that he was met by armies of birds having pebbles in their beaks as well as in their claws, and raining down this terror on them and defeating not only the army but even himself. And he himself developed such a skin disease that he didn't die there on the plains of that Wadi Muhassar, but he died in Yemen, and he died a very difficult death again, and no one dared to then do the repeat onslaught of Makkah and Kaaba ever again after that in history. And his whole army was made into like chaff or something chewed up, straw that was eaten up. We then moved on to Al-Quraysh, where it talks about the Ilaf, which is the economic trade agreements or the pacts that were signed between the Quraysh that were in power with all the neighboring tribes, including those in Yemen. And what was guaranteed about them in this surah is the fact that they had ease of travel and trade, and they had the peace and prosperity. In other words, they were safe from hunger as well as safe from conflict, where their caravans loaded with goods were not ambushed or hijacked on the way. So because of these trade agreements with the neighboring tribes, no one dared to sort of go against or, try and steal from these particular caravans that are the trade caravans going from north to south, and Makkah being in the center. But the idea was that فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, the central message of the surah for the Quraysh of the time was that all the trade pacts that we had encouraged you to make, and which we ensured that the neighboring tribes got into an agreement with you, as well as the fact that we fed you from hunger and we kept you safe from fear, what you should have done in return as a bare minimum is that you should have فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, that you should have worshipped the Lord of this particular house. And we know that even after the surah was revealed, the Quraysh were hell-bent, set in their ways, never wanting to change. They kept to their shirk and polytheism. They kept the idols inside and outside of the Kaaba, and they carried on in their merry kind of way. So if you look at this particular surah, it talks of two things, that essentially, sometimes religion is used by people to keep people under control. We know Karl Marx also talked of religion as being the opiate of the people, of the masses. Now, you find sometimes people who have this wrong notion of what religion is and don't have Tawheed as the concept that they believe in, get waylaid and make religion a secondary thing rather than the main thing that it should be in their lives. So they weren't really, concerned about the religious element of the fact that they were the custodians of the Kaaba and they had to look after it. They instead polluted it with the idols in and around it. And the pagan Quraysh were very much like Abraha. So even though they were reminded about Surah Al Feel, that Allah will protect His house, but what did they do is they chose to keep the status quo of their power and their religion for themselves and for the dominance of the tribes of Arabia. And all this was to change in the few years after with the Fatih Makkah. We then moved on to Surah Al-Ma'un, where it talks about a group of people that yukazzibu bid-din, in other words, they deny the religion or deny the day of accounting or the day of accountability. And these are the people that yadu'ul yatim, they are harsh to orphans, and yahuddu ala ta'amil miskin, and they discourage the feeding of the needy. And again, that strong word is used by Allah for waylul lil musallin, that woe or destruction or the curse be on those who perform their salah, who do it out in a heedless kind of way. They don't concentrate in it. They do it for the sake of show and for others to watch them doing it. And they prohibit others or discourage others even from doing small neighborly acts of charity and giving aid of a very small or minimal amount as well, just to all and sundry that are in need of it. So in this surah, we are reminded, first of all, that this is Yawmuddin, that our relationship with orphans should be that we shouldn't repulse them. We should, in fact, be endeared to them and take them on and, as far as possible, feed them, clothe them, make them our own family members as well. Encourage the feeding of the poor, and not read our salah in a haphazard, disjointed or forgetful kind of a way, and don't do worship where you are watched or looked at by others. And also, we should also make sure that we are charitable at all times and encourage others also to do charity. And the charity also is not only Muslim focused, it's supposed to be humanity focused. So we should become social activists looking after everybody in all societies, starting with your immediate neighborhood first. And it is sometimes through that only that we will be saved in the countries we live in, whether we are in minority or Muslim minority countries or Muslim majority countries. We then looked at a historical timeline of the Prophet's life, and this middle row talks about his age when he was born, and he was 6 years, and it goes on till the age of 63. So it's not necessarily the columns are in 1 year sort of segments. It's just key landmarks of his life. So we talked of his early life. In the age of 40, the first revelation was revealed. Then at the age of 50, the hardship years of the 3 boycott years and sanctions started in their lives. In this period also, it was, a period where they tried to use bribery and they tried to use gentle means, and when that all failed, then they started being harsh on him, and they came up with Surah Al-Kafirun, that idea of a compromise situation. They offered him wealth and, power, and even beautiful women to get married to, but he didn't accept any of those offers. In any case, at the end of it all, it resulted in the Hijrah, where he migrated with his followers, numbering about 100, where they went to Yathrib, and Yathrib then became Madinatul Nabawi, and he built the first mosque there. Then there were 3 major battles fought. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed. Then they came and did Umrah in a peaceful way, and then there was a year of delegations, and towards the end of his life, the Fatih Makkah was guaranteed. The first Hajj was performed, and the final sermon was also made. That final speech, that human charter for all times, was mentioned on the plains of Arafat, and he died at the age of 63. Then we looked at, in relation to that, when some of these surahs were revealed, at which points, and that also has significance, because sometimes what is the content of the surah relates to one incident in his life, and the two tie up. Right, we then moved on to Surah Al-Kawthar, which is the reference to that fountain in Jannah, the source of all, water. It came up as a result of this word Al-Abtar, the last word in this particular surah, where the Quraysh including one of his uncles, mocked at him when they didn't want him to have male progeny or male sons in his particular family. And we know he had 3 male sons and all of them died in the infancy. So on this occasion, when Abdullah was born, they were very, very sad that now he had another son. And a few years later, when he died in early death, in early childhood, they were very, very happy. And they used the word butira, that we are very happy that his lineage has now been cut off and he's got no sons whatsoever. Now, Allah revealed this surah, short one as well, talking about who is actually the one that's cut off. The answer is in the last line. It says, Inna shaniyaka, surely your enemy, right? Or the enemy of Allah is going to be the one who is the most cut off. This is the superlative form of the word butira in terms of the adjective itself. So what Allah guarantees in this particular surah is, we have given you Al-Kawthar. So never mind the fact that you've lost a son. We have given you far superior than a son, which is the ultimate hope and joy of anybody in Jannah, which is Al-Kawthar, that fountain of grace and abundance. So we've given you that, it's guaranteed, it's yours. What you must do in return is فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Do salah, in other words, pray regularly, and wanhar, do big sacrifices and give lots of charity. Now this was said to him at a time when he couldn't afford even one small animal to cut. He was not in a very good way financially, but this particular thing became like a prophecy, and it culminated later in the Medina phase, where he was able to cut many, many camels at his own hands and distribute it in the forms of charity. So this was glad tidings for him on the loss of his son, and it's also the lesson for us to say that whenever we have any hardship or a death in the family, we need to, first of all say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun, that, to Allah did that person belong anyway, and he's now returning, the soul is returning to where it came from. And what we need to take courage in is the fact that the recipe here for us is that do your salah, pray more regularly, make more dua, make more istighfar, and also from your wealth, give as much charity as you possibly can. And inshallah, having done that and overcome that grief in your life through salah and sacrifice and charity, inshallah, one day me and you will also be granted a drink from this Al-Kawthar as a result of our patience and perseverance in this world, enduring the hardship that was dealt with or given to us where we had no say in it, because death is only in the hands of Allah. We then move on to Al-Kafirun, which was the compromise that the Kafirun mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ. They came to him and said, you know what, why don't we come to an agreement that 1 year you will worship our pagan gods, and 1 year we will worship your Allah. And to that, Allah revealed this full surah where Allah tells the Prophet to say, Qul, Ya ayyuhal kafirun, addressing them as kafirs for the, and this category is all atheists, agnostics, polytheists, etc., who are opposed to Tawheed and the concept of Ahad, or oneness of Allah. You, O Kafir, are different from what we are as Muslims. So currently we don't worship like you do, which is in verses 2 and 3. And in verses 4 and 5 it says, we have never done and will never worship like you do in any case. So in the past, as well as in the future, as well as in the present tense, our worship is going to be different from what you worship. And therefore, we're going to part ways. So lakum dinukum, so to you is your religion or your way, and waliya, and to us or to me is my religion. So this is in essence a permanent like separation of ways. The hijrah was to follow shortly thereafter. The Prophet was basically announcing or renouncing his citizenship by saying these verses, and he was prepared mentally for the consequences that will follow, which is leaving Makkah for good, undertaking the hijrah and establishing a new state in a foreign land far away from Makkah. So this is the surah that basically draws the lines, and after this the hijrah followed, as well as some of the 3 major wars that followed, and the battle lines were also drawn after that particular event, all those particular wars. We then move on to An-Nasr. So here we're talking of the help of Allah and the victory that came with it, and that people will enter the religion of Allah in groups. And again, when that happens, what must you do is make tasbih and make istighfar, as Allah is the one who is the most forgiving. So there was a Fath, which is the one before, after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and now this one talks of Al-Fath, that is the victory, right? Like no other victory in history, where there was no fanfare, no bloodshed, no champagne, nothing. It was pure, peaceful entry back into Makkah. And it was possible only with divine help, and you could not do it on your own. And peaceful entry was made into a city of peace, the Balad Aminan. And the guarantee is given to the Prophet that even though your numbers may be still small and not looking very good, but there's a guarantee that people will enter this faith of Allah, this Deenillah as well, in huge numbers. And what your response should be is enter humbly, forgive, hold no grudges against those that were your inveterate enemies, don't have any desire for revenge, no matter what was done to you previously. Be like Yusuf alayhi salam, where he said, La tathriba al-yawm, that there will be no harm or no hardship or no revenge carried out to you, my brothers. So you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do the same. When you enter Makkah, be dignified in your entry. Forgive the people, whoever did hardship to you, as this is no ordinary city and this is no ordinary victory. And make tasbih and seek forgiveness. And he made more istighfar after this particular surah was revealed, more than he had ever done in his life. Then we moved on to the Surah Lahab. And to explain Lahab, I showed you this particular graphic that shows Abu Lahab being the uncle of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His father was Abdullah. He had Abu Talib, which was a friendly uncle, although he was not a believer. He never converted to Islam. And then we have Hamza, who was another uncle that actually died for the sake of Islam and was one of the martyrs in Uhud. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had all kinds of uncles. One a good Muslim, one at least a sympathetic to Islam kind of person, and one an inveterate enemy, Abu Lahab. And this Surah Al-Masad, which is from the last word Masad, which means palm fiber. So both Abu Lahab, the treasurer of the Quraysh and a nobleman of the time of the aristocracy of the Quraysh, and his wife Urwa were both a celebrity or aristocratic couple of the day, and their fates were sealed forever in the revelation of this particular surah. Now, tabba was used twice, and if you remember, tabba was the verb used when Abu Lahab condemned the Prophet and said, may you perish and may the deen that you've come with perish. And he mentioned it on two different occasions in the face of the Prophet. And in response to that, Allah now revealed this particular surah where he didn't say, Qul tabbat yada Abi Lahab, where he's telling the Prophet to convey this message to Abu Lahab and his wife. He says it very forthright and himself openly, where Allah says it, Tabbat yada, may your two hands perish, O Abu Lahab, and may everything that you've earned and all your earnings and all your inheritance and the fact that you have so much of wealth, may everything that you have, your deeds in your hands and everything perish. And you're going to be burning in a fire, a flame that's got a lot of firewood. And who's going to bring that fuel for you is actually your wife, the slave woman that's going to carry this wood. And not only that, she's going to carry the wood so that you burn more, but around her neck also is going to be this necklace. And she used to, in her life, was a big show off, and she had a very beautiful necklace that, was the envy of other women as well. So she used to flaunt it, and Allah is saying, no, you're not going to, this necklace is of this world. Actually, what necklace you're going to get is a necklace made of palm fiber, which will actually burn. So you're going to be necklaced in the year after. So basically, Abu Lahab and his wife were condemned in this particular surah, and there was no chance of any redemption for them. And Abu Lahab as well died after the Battle of Badr. He developed a strange disease which spread to all parts of his body to such an extent that no one wanted to even associate with him or come anywhere near him. And after he died, Abyssinian slaves were called in to dig a little hole and just drop him into that particular grave, which became his grave. So he was popped into a grave. He had a very ignoble death as well. So his life was condemned, and in his death as well, nothing to celebrate about, and he just disappeared into oblivion. We then moved on to Surah Al-Ikhlas, talking about the oneness of Allah. And this surah was revealed as a result of the Bedouin asking on one occasion who Allah is, what is it made of, is it gold, silver, wood, precious stones, and does it have any lineage? In other words, who was his father, did he have sons or daughters, and who are they? So this is a very clear, succinct answer that He, Allah, is only one. He is the only one worthy of worship, and He is the one, the Ahad. So Allah is unique and Allah is one. Then He is Samad, which means that He is the one that nourishes and is free of any need. He is the absolute. There's nothing like Him. Very unique. He did not come into being as through a process of birth. So in other words, there were no parents that gave birth to Allah, and nor was Allah like a father, and there was no son or any other children of His that were born as a result of Him being the father. So it abolishes that notion of even the Trinity in this particular surah. And then وَلَمْ يَكُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا, and there is none and there will be nothing comparable, equal to Him. So He's totally unique. And this is a surah that many of the Sahabas liked, and they read it sometimes even in every rak'ah of their salah, together with other parts of the Quran. So it's also to do with sincerity. So it's sincerity in terms of what you believe, and it negates all notions of polytheism and agnosticism and atheism, because this is a belief in the one supreme being. And it is also this word Ahad that Bilal suffered torture at the hands of his slave masters as well. We then move on to the two Mu'awwidhatain, which is the two surahs that start with Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. These are the two surahs where you seek protection. This one you're seeking protection from outside forces, and the next one will be you are seeking protection from internal forces. So you're seeking protection in this particular one of forces that are out of man's control. The first one is He has created all these things and He has the power over them, that is Allah. Right? Then in general terms, He has created good and He has created evil. So this is the verse 2, that all the evil that Allah has the power to have created, we are seeking protection of that, all that general evil. Then we are seeking protection of the evil of the dark night when it spreads, and the time when sorcery and witchcraft is done. Then we are asking protection of the witchcraft of the sorcerers and the magicians, in particular these ladies that tie a whole lot of knots and blow onto knots and make people's lives go all haywire, as well as evil of envious people, just ordinary jealous people, both of the people as well as of the jinn kind. Then it moves on to Surah Al Nas, where we're seeking protection of forces that are within man's control. So we are keeping away from those leaders or ordinary people who have hyper egos, wanting to become lords, kings, or making people worship them, as Pharaoh did to the Banu Israel. So this idea of being a Rabb of the people, or the Malik of the people, or the Ilah of the people, these are three qualities reserved for Allah, and Allah alone is the final Rabb, the one who sustains the whole of creation and all created things. He is the King of all kings and the object of only the object of worship of the people. Then in terms of specific evils we are seeking protection of, it carries on from the previous surah. Here it's min sharril waswasil khannas, the sneaky whisperer, who sometimes gives ideas or makes you doubt or believe otherwise, or tempts you through various multimedia or even other channels, even So it takes you away, anything that takes you away from the Siratul Mustaqim of Surah Al Faatiha is this group of jinn as well as people that misguides or takes people away from the course that they should be on. So as there the evil sort of gets whispered into your hearts, and the moment we allow it to enter our heart, then we will be misguided, and we need protection at all times from being misguided. And we then moved on to all the longer surahs from Wad-Duha going down to Al-Humaza. So Wad-Duha is talking about Allah swears an oath by the morning brightness as well as the night when it is calm that follows it. Allah comforts the Prophet ﷺ after prolonged absence of wahi and says that he has not forsaken the Prophet, nor is he angry with him in any way. So that we get in verse 3. And also he sort of comforts the Prophet saying that what is to come later in your life will be better. So although you are like suffering now and not at peace, but in time to come you will be, and you will be happy as a result of it. Then Allah talks of the fact that were you not an orphan, O Prophet Muhammad, and we gave you somebody who looked after you? Were you not in search of guidance, and then we gave you this wahi? Were you not impoverished or poor, and then we married you to a rich lady, and even your financial situation changed, and He assisted you all the way through all these sort of tumultuous times in your life? So what should you do in return? Is فَأَمَّ الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Don't repulse the orphan, because you are one yourself. Look at beggars kindly with a soft heart. And lastly, appreciate the blessings that were given and praise Him. Right? So once again, this idea of showing appreciation, hamd and shukr, tasbih and salah, all coming through in this particular last verse, showing gratitude for all the ni'mats, the ni'mah that you have been given, blessed with, and mention it often and show gratitude. The next surah was Al-Sharh, which is the opening of the chest. Allah opens the way for wahi to be revealed by opening the Prophet's chest and making it easy on him. Had this revelation been given to a mountain, and that mountain would have definitely got crushed due to the heaviness of this particular message. And Allah made it possible that humanity could accept this message, and the Prophet was the one it was revealed on, and through him we have the message ourselves. So you, O Prophet ﷺ, are guaranteed a good name, even though your enemies want to make you feel humiliated. And you'll be tested, but remember that with every hardship comes ease, and you'll be tested many, many times, and you will be given ease many, many times as well. So even after you have done your hard day's work, you've preached, you've prayed, what you must still continue is labor hard in the night, and stand up in Qiyamul Layl, do extra nafil ibadah, extra dua and contemplation, and only turn towards Him for all your help and your needs. So this is the idea of making dua profusely and turning to Him for whatever we need in life. At-Teen is about the fig. Allah swears by two fruits, the fig and the olive, as well as two places and all these four things are clear to see, that all messengers came with the same message of Tawheed and the Risala, and we need to accept the message for what it is. And man was created uniquely to be a rational being, a thinking being, having a conscience and a set of morals, and someone who can act ethically, unlike all other creations that only live according to their DNA and what they were created to do or to serve as a purpose for another creation. So all other creations have got this lowly purpose, but man alone has got this ability to think and rise above this. And having taqwa is something that sets man apart from all the other creations. So the message in the surah is having a strong belief. Once again, your aqidah and your ibadah must be right. Having good actions will result in him attaining success. And if you deny the day of accountability, then beware of Allah's acute sense of justice, because He is the best and most fine of judges. Again, we see a link of yukadhibu bid-deen with alam ra'ayta alladhi coming in. And this whole idea of iman and amilus salihat is to do with Al Asr as well, right? You must have iman and do good deeds, and then encourage each other with good and encourage each other with sabr and what is right. Then we have Surah Al-Qadr, which is Allah confirms that the entire Quran was revealed at once during the night of power, this Laylatul Qadr, and is preserved in a divine tablet, ensuring its purity till the end of time. And the amazing miracles about it is that it is the only revelation of the divine book that is memorized till today. And even if every physical copy of the Quran was burnt or destroyed or damaged, the miracle of the Quran is that there are many that have it in their memories and in their hearts, and you can actually rewrite the Quran from this mode as well. So this is the standing miracle of the Quran, that it will stand the test of time and will be there till the end of time. So even under communist rule, when the Quran was forbidden, look at today, Islam is returning to the communistic lands in their numbers. Then what happens on this particular night? The angels and Jibreel descend on the earth and on the command of their Lord. And this night is better than 1,000 months, and it is a very thankful night like no other for those who are able to find it. And we are encouraged to search for this particular night in the last odd nights of Ramadan, the last 10 nights. We then moved on to Al-Zalzala, the rocking or the earthquake trembling and the earth shaking like it's never shaked before. So the end of this world before the Day of Judgment is described in very graphic detail. So there's going to be a violent shaking of the earth, and all that is buried in the earth will be taken out, and the earth will be made to say what had transpired on it since the beginning of time, who walked on it, which deeds were committed, which crimes were perpetrated, etc. And everything will be revealed, because the land and the soil is going to be given a voice to articulate it. And people will be separated into groups and shown their deeds. Those having even one iota of good will see it, and likewise those having done evil will see it. And it's a very terrifying scene indeed. And you remember I mentioned the story of Abu Hanifa one day when he was in the mosque. He cried so profusely, he cried throughout the night, thinking about his own accountability on that Day of Judgment. And the question is, do we do the same? Do we ponder at night before we sleep? And do we consider or take account for what we have done and achieved for that particular day? Or is time just passing us by and one day is the same as the next day? Or are we changing and making the next day better than the previous day? The next verse, next surah was Al Aadiyaat, talking about these these horses, very courageous ones who listen to their masters and enter into the fray of a battlefield as they are commanded to do so by the people riding them. And unlike man who remains ungrateful and will not do so as he is guided. So there's a difference here, that the horses are under the sort of control of man, and man can do what he likes with the horses. But yet when man is supposed to be the abd or the slave of the master, the Rabb, we find that man is very, very ungrateful. He never shows gratitude. He doesn't make hamd or shukr, doesn't perform salah, doesn't worship the way he should. So man is actually very, very ungrateful, and he's misguided, and to that he himself, in other words, man is going to be a shaheed, witness to that himself. And what's the problem of man? He says his inordinate love for wealth makes him forget the day when the graves will be turned upside down, and all the secrets that he kept in his breast will become manifest, as indeed his Lord alone knows all, and nothing can be hidden, as it is recorded in a very, very clear record that's going to be shown to each of us. And this idea is conveyed even in the next Surah Al-Qaari'a, where Allah describes a very apocalyptic event like no other, a rattling noise that is also the calamity that will usher in the end of time. Man is going to become like scattered insects aimlessly wandering in space. The solid mountains will become like streaks of light wool of different colors and hues, some pulverized and some, just moving around in space endlessly. So that day, deeds will be weighed. Whoever is lucky enough to have a heavy scale of good deeds will see the good result. And as for the one whose scales are light, he will have a home in a bottomless deep pit with flames engulfing him all the time, and no escape from the scorching fire, and no reprieve from it either. So these are surahs that when you read and ponder over it, actually supposed to send shivers down our spine and make us change, because time is not on our side. The next surah carries on with the same theme of Al-Takaathur, which is man's preoccupation with acquiring the goods of this world, and all this kathir and kathir takaathur makes him alha. Alha means deludes or makes him distracted. And the only stopper to all man's sort of continuous and relentless search for the good things of this world will be the fact that he has to end up in a grave one day. In other words, death is going to overtake him, and he's going to visit the grave, albeit for a short time, on his short journey into the afterlife. So what's going to happen in the afterlife? Kalla sawfa ta'lamun. The existence of the fire of hell is a reality, and all people will definitely see it, even though they may be in denial of it right now. And some, unfortunately, will even end up in it after being questioned about each blessing given to them while on earth. So this na'im, all the different ni'mats we were blessed with, our health, our time, our energy, our skills, our ability to do good for others, all that is going to be questioned on that day. And whoever is safe from this Jahim will be obviously in the Fawz al-Azim, be ultimately successful. And the same theme moves on to Al Asr, that is Allah swearing by the advent of time, that surely man is in a temporary loss. Now we mentioned the word khusr. There are 3 words talking about loss in the Quran. Khusr is a loss that you can overcome or you can do something about. Whereas the khasara is a loss upon a loss. In other words, where you are already in one loss and you got one loss above that loss. And then khusran is the ultimate loss, where if you lose your dunya and your akhirah, the verse says, you're going to be in a khusran mubin. In other words, you're going to have the ultimate loss for which there's no help and nothing that's going to change after that. So here, fortunately, Allah talks about a loss that we can make up for or do something about if we value our time. And the surah tells us it's talking about the image of a declining day, suggests a stage in the day or in our lives when only a short while is left for those wishing to make up and to mend their ways and to lead a better life before it is too late. So we are urged to take heed and not to be forgetful. So Allah redefines success in this and rewires our thinking by illustrating through this mode of an emergency that loss is not about the things that people strive for in this world, but rather something more sublime. We are urged to look at history and see the end of those in previous generations who lost out due to not being taking heed or being mindful in what they achieved and what they did, and didn't have a sense of urgency to do something positive or to change their lives in a positive way. So we are encouraged to have firm faith, to do even the smallest of good deeds, and to do it often, and to do it to all people, and the tawasiyas bil haq, in other words, do it in conjunction with other people, stand up for truth, and stand up with patience and perseverance. Then the final surah of our series was Al-Humaza. Allah says very angrily that all forms of destruction be on the backbiter, that is the one who speaks ill of others behind their backs, and the scandal monger or the slanderous reviler who character assassinates others in the open. So on top of that, he has a tendency to abuse his flaunted wealth, covering his own bad qualities by projecting and highlighting that of others in public. He is delusional to think that his wealth will make him live forever. His defamation of others and poking fun at them is not going unnoticed. A special crusher, this khutama, which rhymes with lumaza and humaza, right, is in store for him, which is a fire that has been reserved for him that will cover his heart and spread all over around his body, choking and suffocating him. Thick columns of fire will be around him and closed in on him, deforming him over and over again for having eaten the flesh of his brother, the backbiting and the slander, and he will have no escape from this khutama. So may Allah protect us from all these evils that we can fall into very, very easily. So we move on to the conclusion. So I'd just like to personally thank all of you for staying the course and having undertaken this journey of discovery and reflection. It was an amazing journey for me personally as well. The mistakes that were made in these particular presentations are mine and mine alone, and not the respected scholars that I've consulted. I have also shown a deep sense of appreciation to Ustad Nauman Ali Khan for his brilliant expose and his exegesis and his explanations that this is a summary of. I've also found a lot of good coming out of Sheikh Yasir Qadi's various khutbahs that he's delivered on occasions on explanations of these surahs as well. And there are many other scholars as well that have consulted, and Allah grant them ease and forgiveness and reward for the many, many hours that they've spent in trying to simplify the Quran for all of us to benefit from it. So may Allah also make this Quran a source of our continued guidance. May we also become ambassadors for Islam, shining out as true, what Islam really stands for. May we also be guided to ponder and reflect more deeply while reading the Quran, finding more concentration and humility in our salah, and may He accept our humble efforts, yours and mine, and may we also read the Quran daily with understanding and practice it in our lives. Let's end off with this short dua that is normally recited at the time of a khatam of the Quran. Allahumma arhamni bil Quran, that is, have mercy on me by virtue of this Quran. Waj'alhu, and make it li, for me, an imam, a source of light and a guidance as a leader. Wa nuran, as a source of light. Wa huda, as guidance as well. So make this Quran a leader, a light and a guide and a mercy for me. And mercy. Allahumma dhakkirni minhu ma nasitu. O Allah, remind me what I have forgotten, or what I was ignorant of. Wa allimni ma jahiltu, and teach me what I was ignorant about of it. Wa rizukni, and bless me. Tilawatahu, its recitation, ana al-layl, throughout the hours of the night. Wa atraf in-nahar, and all the daylight hours as well. In other words, make it a book that we live by in both day as well as night, in other words 24/7. Waj'alhu, and make it li hujjatan, make it as an evidence, Ya Rabbal Alameen, an evidence that yes, indeed, the Prophet ﷺ has, the revelation was given to him, but it has reached me and you in this day and age, so many, many centuries after the demise of the Prophet. We've received it still intact in its pristine purity, in its form, and make us read it the way it should be read, with tajweed, with the correct pronunciation, without making errors, and give it the dignity it deserves as well, and that we approach it always with wudu, and whenever it's recited as well, we stop any other talk and we listen to it attentively, and may it be a source of light and guidance, and may change our lives. So these few words, we thank you for having attended the series, and the previous sessions are available. Please consult it, and let it be a source of guidance for all. We'll end off with Wal Asr again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahu alayhi.